Man, that was interesting. Um, I have some questions for you, but I'm gonna save those after I kind of give my thoughts on it. So, just for background, I've smoked weed and I've done it, and it not I haven't necessarily. It wasn't a lifestyle for me. It wasn't even necessarily a crutch. It was just kind of probably fall under the category like you were saying of wanting entertainment, looking for something fun to do, a way to relate into some of my friends, and like you said, it was really social. It's like probably the equivalent of people that socially drink. It was like me, I socially would smoke because I had friends they would want to smoke and they would want me to because I don't know, man. It's just a thing where like people just want to see what it would be like, how you would be when you're high. And that whole concept alone is what convicted me out of smoking it because the people when they would want to, I never paid for weed. Like I've never bought it myself, but I was always offered to smoke with people, and it was always with the intent of seeing how I would be when I wasn't, in my normal mind state. It was purposely wanting to see me outside of that, and I liked how I was without the weed. And so, for me, if you're at, and the question is something when you ever get to, here's my thing: when you get to a point where you're asking, is something a sin that the Bible specifically hasn't called a sin, then automatically you're going into a conversation less about right or wrong or wisdom. Immediately you turn it into a conversation of wisdom. If the Bible doesn't, like for example, the Bible calls drunkenness a sin. Well, what leads to drunkenness? Drinking. Well, how much drinking leads to drunkenness? Is it the sip or is it the excess? That I don't know. I don't have a clear answer. Everybody has a threshold. The amount that I might drink and be able to operate, and I don't drink, for just full disclosure, I don't drink. Pastor Jeffton doesn't drink either. But the amount I drink in reference to the amount you drink might completely have a different, like we can drink the same amount and have a completely different response, and we can be taken out. Or a person of the opposite sex, a woman, drinks the same amount as me, might completely lose all her ability to think rationally or completely act in a way that is not the right way. So a lot of it has to do with wisdom. And when it's a matter of wisdom, it becomes a secondary issue. It's not to say that it can't be sin, because if we're being honest, anything can be sin. You can have a realistic debate as to whether or not coffee is sin, because it depends on how it's used. So let me go into this. I don't believe that necessarily weed in and of itself is sin, because I think there are properties of marijuana that are redeemable. And so we always are having this conversation. Can something be redeemed? Marijuana has CBD in it, which is the property that gives you maybe the feelings that you're looking for as far as if you're dealing with stress or anxiety. It can give you those properties without taking you outside of your right mind. It can be like the equivalent of coffee to some or a relief to some. So CBD would be, and that's something that has been legalized in a lot of areas for people to use CBD. THC is the chemical which causes people to get that state of being high out of the marijuana. So if we unpack it, there's a lot of CBD products now, which I don't have any issue. I would even be open to doing a CBD gummy, because it's taken out the properties that would lead to intoxication. It'd be the equivalent of coffee then, which it can still be a vice, but in and of itself, the intent of it is a good thing. Just like if you're having a headache, well, yeah, you can pray or you can just tough it out until it goes away, or you can take an ibuprofen or Tylenol. It's not wrong to do it, but if you're just completely relying on that and never going to God, or if it's becoming a crutch in your walk with God, then maybe you can't do that. So that's the kind of view that I have of some of the properties of it. Now, smoking marijuana, getting the blunts, the papers, whatever you use, the cigarello, there it is. Getting the cigarello, breaking down the blunt, doing all of this, and then putting it all together. Immediately, I have a different opinion when it comes to your process of smoking weed, because not only are you smoking weed at that point, now you're bringing in nicotine. A lot of people forget that these blunts, the reason why people are so addicted to weed is not because they're actually addicted to marijuana. They're addicted to the nicotine that comes from the cigarello. A lot of people don't realize that. And that plays a huge factor in why people can't get off of weed. Weed isn't that addicting in and of itself, but blunts are specifically. So there is an aspect of it that can be very dangerous in how you do it. I don't recommend any. So if we're talking about the church, I don't recommend Christians just smoking weed casually or whatever, because I do think that a lot of what Jeffton said is true. But I do think that marijuana in and of itself, just like alcohol in and of itself, there are purposes. You cut yourself, you're probably gonna get some alcohol peroxide to clean it out. So that has a purpose. If you're battling, if you have cancer, in many cases, I'm not saying smoking blunts again, but there may be some cases in which cannabis could help under specific medical purposes. And a lot of people have turned down because of their negative association with it, have turned down, that have taken Vicodin but not taken marijuana. A lot of NFL players have turned to weed, and they're like, why are you risking millions of dollars on this? It's like they look at it as, you're right, I'm risking millions of dollars to smoke weed, not because I'm just addicted to weed, but because genuinely Vicodin and all of these harder drugs that people are completely given the green light to are way worse on my body than marijuana could ever be. And so if I'm specifically using it because it really helps to relieve my pain and help me with a lot of the things that you're already giving me drugs that are probably way worse for me. If you're saying marijuana is so bad for my body, then these things are way worse than marijuana. Marijuana won't kill me the way that these other things will kill me in the long run. It may have a negative effect, but so all of that being said, it all depends on what purpose you have for it, and if that purpose is going to usurp the purposes that God gives. So there's a scripture in First Corinthians chapter 6 verse 12 that says, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are expedient. In Illinois, where I live, and I'm not sure in Texas, I don't know if it's legal in Texas. I'm guessing it's not, but I don't know.
I don't know exactly. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I know in Colorado it's legal. In California it's legal. In these areas, it is lawful. You can go. They just opened up a dispensary out here in Charleston, actually, which was funny, right where they had the family video at. There's a dispensary now, and a lot of people
Wow.
were going to it. So it's illegal, but the Bible goes on to say, but not all things are expedient, meaning beneficial. So when you're talking about something that's not beneficial, it's very, very, and this is where I'm probably going to get critiqued on this too, but what Christians have to understand is, if we're talking about if something is beneficial, then it's a matter of wisdom, not of salvation and sin. It doesn't become sin until it's no longer beneficial for your relationship with God. And it's no longer, and it becomes a subtraction. So just because video games are not beneficial to my walk with God doesn't mean it's wrong for me to play it. But the moment it becomes not beneficial and a deterrent from me getting closer to God, then it is sin. So both of those things have to qualify. So if in matters of wisdom, you cannot get caught up on if you wouldn't do it. Get more caught up on, okay, not only is it not beneficial, it's costing you X amount of money, but it's also taking you away from God. You're not as sensitive to the presence of God. You're losing out on money. You're in debt. You're not able to pay your bills. There's other things. So you have to look at it on a more holistic level, because God is requiring that we do, because there's always going to be things that are not as beneficial. Like, for example, the Jews, they looked at pork as just terrible. And from a health perspective, not beneficial to Gentiles, or the eating of things that were to be offered to pagan idols. They looked at that as not healthy or not beneficial, and even potentially wrong based on their convictions. But if the Gentiles were not convicted by it, Apostle Paul said, let them do it. And even to make matters worse, he even went on to say, if you being a Christian are invited into the household of a non-believer and they serve you food that would be of a conviction to you, he said you should eat it. He even said that you should eat food that is not even supposed, that you probably disagree with, or what you shouldn't create a debate on it. You should eat what's offered to you even in that context. So all of that being said, the end goal is, from a standpoint of wisdom, I may not think it's wise to smoke weed if you're a Christian. I think that smoking weed in excess will cause you, and even just a little bit, I think even a little bit will impair you in a way that won't be helpful to your walk with God. But at the end of the day, with matters of wisdom, we will immediately begin to see whether or not there is fruit that comes from the life of it. And the people that we know that were really into smoking weed, I would venture to say that they haven't reached nearly the amount of people that we have been able to reach, and their fruit isn't as prevalent. If anything, they've caused more people to
Exactly.
stumble in their walks with God, and they've attacked more people and hurt more people. So my question to you ties into what I was saying of the other purposes with the plant marijuana, other than just recreational use. What are your thoughts on just in and of itself, the other things that can be extracted from it, and if that can be used by us?
Great question. Here's how I'll explain this.
Mm-hmm.
Because okay, first and foremost, I don't see any harm in it in my eyes. However, that's not the case in everyone else's eyes. If you're a forklift driver, if you're a heavy machinery operator or whatever, I have heard. Now, you weed heads can come out the the closet on this one on me if you want. You stoners come out the closet on me if you want, because I may be mistaken. I have heard that certain CBD oil, certain hemp products have been shown to come up with traces in like drug test if you were to take a drug test. Now, I'm just saying, if your company permits it, if your lifestyle permits it, if you see no wrong in it, then so be it. But I'm just telling you, I'm from what I've heard, because I've used hemp lotion because my wife bought it and we used it. And I get to messing around because at first I didn't use it. I was like, hold on, this stuff is making
Mm-hmm.
you, I'm joking with her talking about it's making you high. But after a while, I started using it. Loved the lotion. Was probably one of the better lotions I've ever used. Wasn't too thick. Wasn't too liquidy.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. But I got to thinking about it, and then I got to looking at ingredients, and then I got to trying to research a little bit that I could find. And apparently, sometimes in some products, I'm not saying all products, but in some products, they have shown to show traces of whatever chemical. I don't know. I'm not saying it's THC. I don't know if it's hemp. I don't know if it's CBD. Whatever chemical is coming up for certain drug tests, and
Mm-hmm.
it is probably frowned upon if you're wanting to get a job if that comes up and you fail a drug test. So as far as my eyes, no, man, go for it. You know what I'm saying? It's not altering your brain. It's not altering
Mm-hmm.
the way you operate. In fact, it's just doing things like a ibuprofen would, or it's like a painkiller would. So
Yeah.
I see no harm in that. I think that one day we will get to that point where the scientists have completely come to the point where they're good and confident that no, there's no THC, there's no traces. These are perfectly good for your body. The hemp, the
Yeah.
CBD, whatever, it's good for you. And so that's my thoughts on it. Like there's no harm in that.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned alcohol. I mean, we rub that on wounds and we think nothing of it.
Nothing of it.
So,
No, I think so. I think we both agree in the bigger picture that it's all in the intent and use. So if you're trying to just smoke it for recreational purposes, I'm probably going to warn you against it. I won't judge you, but I will warn
mhm.
like against it for a conducive walk with God, because I have not seen many Christians who are fruitful that smoke weed regularly or if at all. And similarly,
Yeah,
I
I've
haven't
not
seen.
seen one
Yep,
either.
I've seen the same thing with Christians that drink frequently, wine and things like that, and it's just like at the forefront. I don't see a ton of fruit. I know that there is. I'm sure there's out there some, but I haven't seen a lot of fruit from it. But again, like the
Mhm.
scripture says, that the offspring of wisdom is what we need to focus on with matters of wisdom. It's like, okay, wisdom shall be shown in its children and her children. So we'll find out.
Yeah. Yeah, show me some. Yo, bring to me. I want to be proven wrong. Bring to me someone that smokes weed. And I'm not talking about these spiritualists out there, these people that, are tapping into their inner chakras and inner
Facts.
pieces. No, I'm talking about God led, spirit filled, seeing in the burning bush type spirit filled. Bring me someone that smokes weed that is close to God. And to your point, Bradley, yes, it's wisdom. Use your wisdom on on this topic. And I would just throw that out there for those listening. Show me one person that smokes weed that's close to the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. Please show me one, because I would love to. I would love to meet this person.
Yeah, no judgment. I just don't know if there's fruit. So